We're going to get into a few scenario based, and I want to get your thoughts because I know this is a podcast, so this is not the same as like you're going to be able to everything in this podcast. We're going to solve everything, but you brought us some very interesting scenarios, and I actually have a few here. That I would love to know what your thought is. And we call this a segment. It's called the sticky seat, right? It's like the hot seat.
The hot seat,
but it's sticky.
Okay,
you got me. Right. In this segment, the sticky seat, I'm gonna share with you scenarios based on in this edition being based on AI and healthcare, right? That is, they're sticky situations, but also I want to just know at least how you would initially think about these situations. As we kind of go through this segment. So here's the first one, right? Algorithm, an AI system is designed to diagnose skin diseases, and it has been trained predominantly on data from lighter skinned patients. And so when deployed, it performs significantly worse on patients with darker skin, leading to delayed or even incorrect diagnoses. How would you think about this as it relates to addressing this particular bias in AI tools?
Typically, some form of treatment plan or some care option will be given. The question should then be asked, who will this harm? Not what it will correct. What will go wrong? What will go wrong is all the things you just said, right?
Incorrect diagnoses.
Underdiagnoses, maltreatment, delayed treatment. All of those things, right? Now that we know that that's a problem, hopefully we'll know that that's a problem, there has to be some feedback loop. Because you're only going to use, I would hope, a portion of your data set to train that algorithm. Then you'd use the full set to actually run and come up with a real picture of truth. Right? The last thing I will say is, once you do all of that, no one these days is really asking the question. We're so big data centered. Where's the small data, Dr. Nee?
The small data.
Where's the small data?
And by small data, you mean some of the unique differentiations from person to person?
Absolutely. I mean, particularly small differentiators on, they may be characteristics, it may be defining characteristics, it may be genotype, phenotype, it may be the lived experience, it may be work conditions, it may be health conditions, it may be transportation. We call that, all of those are the social determinants of health. Have you asked those questions?
Small data.
Small data.
Yeah, you're right.
Because that helps you to contextualize the results relative to the patients that are in question. And while I realize a lot of times it's time sensitive. Decision makers want to make a decision in a timely manner. Sometimes you have to roll back in order to get that feedback loop. And you should always ask the question, who's not in the room?
That's why you're the expert. That's why she's the expert. You know why? Because I think when sometimes I ask a question, I feel like the answer is in the question, but you took it so much deeper because I think the surface is, well, just test it on darker skinned patients, right? Like just get more data. But you're like, it's not just that. It's not just that. It's who's going to interpret the data. Even if you did get darker skinned patients, who's looking at it and determine what's then the next steps, right? And then even, like you said, small data. I like that.
And you would hope that from that learning, what can be learned to modify the algorithm, to revise the algorithm to account for patients with darker skin. And that feedback loop, make sure that you're constantly. That's industrial engineering.
That's that IE.
That industrial and systems engineering.
Let's go. All right, cool. Check this out. So here's another one. All right, another AI related. An advanced AI system has been developed to optimize the allocation of limited resources in a community, throughout a community. Let's say, even if the community is a certain geographical area, right? However, the system inadvertently prioritizes areas with higher internet connectivity and tech savvy populations, people who know how to operate, which disadvantages rural and poor areas. How would you think about that when it comes to allocation of resources socioeconomically?
Sure. Wow. Okay. I see this as a community-based approach. I see this as a question of a halo effect. And by that I mean, we assume that the internet is needed by those that already have the resources, right? It's almost like you've received you've received some funding before. So obviously when you submit something, you must be worthy because you received it before.
Yeah.
So it's a halo effect, halo bias, right?
Yeah.
We got to step back, right? I think in this case, it is very critical to understand the community at a grassroots level. What is needed by that community. And sometimes people assume that community can't voice that. They can voice it. It's just how you interpret what they're saying. You almost have to be able to code switch, right?
Right.
Because I know that I can go back home to my hometown in the way someone may say it, or my home city in the way someone may say it.
What city are you from, by the way? Georgia?
Augusta, Georgia. Okay. Home of James Brown.
James Brown. You know, I was born in Georgia, too.
No.
So I was born in Americas. I grew up in Albany, Georgia, South Georgia. But I know Augusta's at South Carolina line.
That's right.
All right, cool. Yeah, I digress. Go ahead.
So we need to have community voice in this allocation of resources, right?
Yes.
And here you get to broadband access.
Yep.
You get to economic disparities. I think is particularly where you can see it is in school systems.
Okay.
So learning about those three things would require that those that are creating the algorithm better understand what's happening at the community level.
Yeah.
So that when you get ready to allocate the resources are allocated based on a true need. The question is, how do you define a need? Because the assumption, particularly when it comes to this, is need may be based on, you have access to computing. But access and availability are two different things. I might have availability at my local library.
Right.
But I don't have access in my home.
That's true. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like I see the wiring. You all have fiber optic cables in that part of town.
Right.
But it's like I got to go across town to even get on a computer that can actually.
That's right. Right.
I'm just going to say this because I know this is what happens sometimes. It's like, but that's just too much work, Dr.
I know.
Fay. I got to go grassroots. Yeah. Can I just look at the map and see who's in there?
No, absolutely not. That's lazy,
that's
right?
Lazy.
And so we look at a map.
Yeah.
God bless Dr. Johnson. She created GPS.
Yeah.
But she did not drive people off cliffs, right?
She sure did.
So that doesn't mean that you can't have discernment in terms of having data skills yourself. It does require work. It does.
Right.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
But if we're going to posture this as something that is helping community, but disadvantaging others, that's not helping.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. All right, one more. Here we go in our sticky seat. All right.
Sticky seat.
Let's see where I want to go.
This seat is very sticky.
Is it sticky? Look, you're helping us unstick the seat, though. You definitely helping us. He's helping us unstick the seat. Here it is. Here we go.
Okay.
This is probably more of a service one that we hear a lot, right?
Okay.
You have implementations, say at a hospital, of AI systems that automate several administrative tasks that previously were handled by staff, by human staff, which leads to job cuts and reduce human interaction and patient care. What are your thoughts on how we could, balance the efficiency gained with AI, but at the same time recognize the potential social impact on employment and even quality?
Sure.
Yeah,
that is a sticky situation, and that's a very real scenario these days. Particularly in healthcare, but I know in other domains as well. If you rid yourself of the human, you rid yourself of the opportunity to get that small data.
Oh, right.
That I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So there's the concept of a human into the loop. And right now, AI is potentially giving the answer, right? Or the allocation or the resources that should be deployed. Again, it's an AI algorithmic process. So it's not from 0 to 1. Right. There are other steps in between, right?
It shouldn't just be all AI.
It shouldn't just all be AI.
Yeah.
It should be some combination of computing and human interaction as well.
Yep.
And so the efficiencies that you may gain, you can deploy employees, professionals in other parts of the algorithmic process.
Right.
And I would also suggest, again, that small data is where, you don't get that from AI.
Exactly.
You don't get to understand, and I'll give you this example. So I was at a conference a few years ago, and a person sort of said, this is what came out of the algorithm. This is the typical patient, and typical patient looks like this, can't read that, 7th grade education, blah, 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 and happens to be a Black woman and does not adhere. And you're sitting there and it's like, well, there are like 3 Black women in the audience and this us. And
right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
That interpretation of what adherence is or is not should not be a 0 or 1.
Yeah.
That's why you can redeploy the employees to be involved in the loop, in the process.
And say, that doesn't sound right.
That doesn't sound right.
Right. We need to add some more context to this.
That's right.
Let's I don't know if sprinkle is the right word, but let's also factor in small data.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, that's
Absolutely.
major. And,
Absolutely.
And I think from a market standpoint, what AI is then obviously going to create is new job roles where, okay, you may not be doing every keystroke, but now you need to be able to look at, and I think this is where STEM in general is really interesting, especially for our young people and our students coming up. It's like the opportunities continue to expand and being able to expose people to other roles that are emerging as a result of AI and the way that AI is deployed. I agree with you on that. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So, for young people, I would really hope, and, I really tried to do this in a classroom context, understanding, having data literacy skills.
Yes.
It's so critical. But with AI now, it's not that you put something in and AI spits something out. It's what questions are you prompting AI, right? It's almost like prompt engineering.
Right?
Yeah. And how you prompt will train the algorithm.
Yeah.
But knowing what to prompt is a skill set in and of itself. What questions to ask, and then how to interpret the data that comes out of that.
That's major. Yeah.
The other thing I will say, especially for, our future STEMers, being flexible and agile in an interdisciplinary way. So if you're civil engineering and I'm industrial engineering and someone else is psychology and someone else may be, political science, because they do just as much AI these days as anyone in political science.
Yeah.
Can you function on a team like that? That's the question that students should be asking and teachers should be asking, right? Yeah. You create, I tried to create the mess, simulate the mess.
Yeah.
That way, when you come out, you're better suited for
to handle the mess.
To handle the mess.
The mess.
Yeah.
Hey, listen. Well, I just want to thank you for handling the scenario mess that we kind of just thought about.
That was sticky
in our sticky seat segment. And I think undoubtedly, Dr. Fay, you've just even demonstrated just a small tip of your expertise.